You get one shot at creating your definition of a successful retirement. So it's up to you to make sure you're avoiding three of the most common challenges that so many retirees have rather unexpectedly faced. When you think about this moment in your life, you're listening to this and you're either at retirement, you're ready for that next chapter, or maybe you're in it. Thinking about all of the things that you want to do and all of the things that you have been saving to do for this time, not just in a monetary fashion, but in an experience fashion. For so many years, you might have found yourself saying, I'll wait until this date. I'll wait until later in life when things slow down a little bit. Well, now's the chance for things to slow down and you to really reshift, refocus your attention and make some big decisions around what retirement might look like for you. So imagine that you are at the end of your life. You're essentially on your deathbed and you're reflecting back over all of the experiences you've had, over all of the people in your life that you've encountered. What do you want these precious, precious final years of your life, this next chapter that you're going into? What do you want to remember about them? Who is it that you want to remember the most? AKA, who do you want to be spending your time with when it comes to this period of time, this time of retirement, this time of really looking at how you want to spend the abundance of time that you now have that you maybe didn't have at a time before because you had a job to wake up to. You maybe had a company to run. Now you basically wake up with the freedom to do and act and, spend your time however it is that you want to spend it. So one of the things that you want to make sure you're doing is that you're focusing your attention on the right things in order to avoid three of the biggest challenges that so many retirees have faced in their lifetime. So up to this point, you're sitting here and you're in this moment where you're thinking about what retirement means to you. And I would believe that, we wouldn't want to go by the textbook definition of retirement being essentially putting yourself out to pasture. That's not a super enticing thought. That's not a very warm thought. And this is a time for you to really look at how you can enhance your life, not how you can just fade off into the distance, fade off into the sunset. You want to spend your time building experiences, building memories, spending time with the people that you love that maybe you haven't had a chance to spend as much time with as you would have desired over the years because your career was front and center. Or again, maybe you had a business and you've recently sold, or you have a succession plan where you're slowly stepping out of it. You don't want to make some of the same mistakes in retirement that so many others have made over time. And essentially, in a nutshell, it's by succumbing to three of these challenges that I'm about to share with you. So again, you think about your life and you think about meaning and you think about impact and you think about all the things that you want to do yet, that you want to accomplish. You don't want to be hindered and really blindsided by things that you could potentially avoid. So if you think about all the years that you've dreamt about what retirement life means to you, how you're spending your time, you might already be in retirement. Maybe you're in those years and you're like, hey, you know what? I've got this. I think I've got this figured out pretty well. My argument would be that just like so many other things in life, we can always make them even better. So, in order for you to potentially make your retirement years even better, there are three things that you want to look at avoiding when it comes to hitting some challenges head on in retirement. You want to try to circumvent these rather than succumb to them. So the first thing that you can avoid when you look at creating your definition of a successful retirement, the first thing to avoid is falling into the trap of losing your identity. For so many of you, again, if you're listening and you are a business owner, you've been a business owner, a lot of times your business has become like another child to you. It's something that you have raised from the ground up, that you've fostered growth in, that you've devoted time and energy and attention and resources and people and everything else you can think of to a point where you essentially become wrapped up into the identity of that business. Now, what happens? What happens when you decide that you are no longer going to own that business? Maybe you are faced with a business sale, or maybe you've decided that now is the time to kind of roll into that next chapter of your life. So you're stepping down as a majority owner, or you're stepping down and you're selling off a great portion of the business, or you're getting out of the operation. You might be listening to this as somebody who has worked and built up into a high level position. Maybe you weren't the business owner, but maybe you were somebody that helped run the company. Again, that's something that you pour so much time and energy into, that when you go to make that retirement decision, again, I use that term loosely because we're not putting you out to pasture here. When you go to make that retirement decision for your future, you want to make sure that you know who you are going into that. So the challenge that so many face when going into retirement, especially after having a booming career or a very clearly defined purpose to wake up to every day, is that their entire identity becomes wrapped up in what they had been doing, in who they had shown up as up to this point. So when you think about crafting your definition of an ideal retirement, that might mean looking at how you're going to spend your time, how you're going to, or who you're going to surround yourself with, the people that you're going to put in your court, identifying what your interests are, some of the things that maybe you didn't allocate time for before, now you might have that time to do so. So really deciding who it is you want to be around, who you want to share your time with, and how you're going to spend that time so that you can form whatever this next level identity is. Being very intentional about who you are so that you don't lose that sense of purpose and sense of self. There's so many different things that you can do to really look at, who is the future Mr. Smith? Who is the future Mrs. Smith? Who is it that you want to be and aspire to be? Because growth doesn't stop at the end of our career. Growth stops when we decide to stop growing. So if you think about that from the position that you're in right now, what are some of the things that you want to enhance? Going into retirement, you might decide that you want to spend time outside of where you're located now. So maybe that means learning a new language, diving into a different culture, making decisions around, where you're going to spend your time and what that looks like, and how that ties back to who you are as a human being and why you desire that at this point in time. So be sure that you avoid the challenge or the struggle of that identity loss by pinpointing what it is or who it is that you want to be in this next chapter. Because again, your story's not over. You're simply flipping the page. You're going to something new. So it's deciding what you're going to retire to versus all that we've lost, all that we're retiring from. It's really, really difficult. If you're in a state of gratitude for what the future holds and what the future might present to you, it's really difficult to hold on to that feeling of loss. When you're in that intentional state of gratitude, it helps you really move forward and make decisions that can better enhance your future, that can better enhance your relationships and all of that, where you're spending your time and your attention going into these retirement years. So that is the first challenge that you want to avoid in order to create that ideal retirement where you're on your deathbed and you have no regrets and you have no feelings of loss or missing out, because you know who you are and you know what you stood for and you know what your purpose was. So avoiding that loss of identity is really important. The next is the struggle of misunderstanding just how much time you have and what it might take to fill that time. Now, what this means here is that, you might have an intention to go play golf, or, pickleball has become really popular for all ages. Maybe those are a couple things that you're like, I would really love to dive into those more. I'd love to spend more time. I'd love to, really build kind of a sense of community around those activities. Those things are wonderful. But what so many fail to understand is that when you are still working, you're getting up, you have something to go to, you have a job to essentially do, you might spend or have your kind of unwind time be on the course. So a couple nights a week, you might meet up with your significant other or friends or family or whatever, and go play a couple rounds of golf. You might spend your weekends doing that. That's your time to unwind, and it's an activity you really enjoy. Now, in retirement, when you don't have that job to go to, or that company to run, or that bigger purpose per se that you've spent your whole life defining yourself as, remember the loss of identity, it can be really difficult then when you shift away from that and now you have all this time. Golf may not be as enticing when you're doing it for 8-10 hours a day, every day. It's just not practical. That's not something that we can often feel fulfilled on, especially for somebody who has, had such a high profile career or run a lucrative business or anything like that. So you really want to avoid falling into the trap of not realizing just how much time you actually have. So one of the ways that you can kind of circumvent this is to be really strategic with how you want to spend your time and what experiences you want to incorporate in. So again, you have spent the last how many years of your life waking up and knowing exactly what you were doing, exactly where you had to go, whether you work from home, whether you worked in an office space, you work in a factory setting, you work, wherever, you knew exactly where you were headed for that day. So part of creating that successful retirement is to really map out how you want to be spending your time. Where do you want to be spending your energy, and creating almost a schedule for yourself? So, if you're somebody who's wanted experiences and, maybe even, cultivating new friendships, there's something to be said about that. Just because you've hung around the same people for so long doesn't mean that's necessarily who you're going to spend your time with in retirement. If you think back to when you were a younger child, it was not unusual for you to make new friends. That was kind of expected. You come home and you tell your mom or your dad or grandma or grandpa or your caregiver that, you made a new friend on the playground, and that was just kind of shrugged like, oh, great. That's it's good to hear. Now, as adults, we think about cultivating new friendships, and it can be like, wait, I'm too old for that. I don't know how to do that anymore. So that's something to really pay attention to in these monumental years, because a lot of times, if you did have a full brick and mortar business to wake up to and go to every day, you really had friendships that were based in that business. Or maybe if you were somebody that you were an icon in your industry, you create those industry friendships and those people that you are so used to associating with, because you're eating, sleeping, and breathing the same kind of stuff. So once you no longer have that, again, tying back to this identity thing, that was the number one thing we talked about today, tying back to that loss of identity, or that challenge of losing your identity or trying not to, it kind of goes hand in hand with building out your schedule and deciding who you're going to spend time with, so that you don't run into complete boredom. This is why so many people end up having kind of that next life career, that next chapter where you look at maybe taking a job, not for the money, not for the rank or the title or whatever, but for pure enjoyment, something that will fill your time and help you feel like you have that purpose to get up to every day. So again, that's a challenge that so many retirees seem to be blindsided by, is not realizing just how much time they have on their hands. So use your energy now to be able to map out what that looks like, to make sure that your time is maximized, that you are around the people you want to be around. You're cultivating new relationships, you're deciding on your hobbies, you're creating experiences, and you're making decisions around what fulfillment now looks like to you. So that rounds us into the third challenge that many retirees that we've encountered have essentially ended up facing, and that's not understanding how much you can actually spend in retirement. Now we're going to the monetary component here. With our team working with so many different retirees over the years, people who have accumulated all different levels of wealth, there's a common thread that can occur here. And that's that people tend to err on the side of caution, in turn, not spending as much as they actually could to create a fulfilled life. So, in a nutshell, what that means is that people aren't always embracing the experiences that they didn't even realize were possible because they don't have somebody in their corner to help them make informed decisions. So, out of maybe fear or a little bit of a scarcity mindset, people tend to err on the side of caution and not take that trip or not, support a family member, like a grandkid. You want to help out a little bit with college or whatever the case is. Maybe that wasn't part of your plan initially, but now you've realized, like, hey, this is something that I want to do. Again, people tend to underspend versus overspend. So, one way that you can avoid that is making sure that you have a wealth advisor in your corner, that you have somebody that you can talk through, that you can look at all the different scenarios of what might impact your plan in the future and how these decisions may influence that. So if you have a plan set up, one that you've accumulated your wealth up to this point, and now you want to make sure that you are trying to maximize on your experiences, you're leaning into creating that new identity, that new sense of purpose. You want to make sure that you're not being held back because you're scared of not having enough money. Again, everybody's situation is so uniquely different and so individual to your own circumstances. However, if you don't present the question and you don't have a wealth advisor that you can talk to, that you can vet out different scenarios, that you can really look at how your decisions might impact your plan in the future, then it may make you not experience life to the fullest. Again, we're going to go back to that moment in time where you're laying there and you're on your deathbed and you're surrounded by your loved ones and you're thinking and reflecting back on your life. You don't want it to be that, well, I have a lot of money, but really didn't experience anything. I didn't check anything off my bucket list because I was afraid of running out of money. Well, I would say that that would be or could be a really painful realization when you come to that point in your life. So again, going back to kind of a summary, a recap of the challenges that so many retirees end up facing that they aren't aware of, that they aren't prepared for, that not enough people are talking about. Number one is that loss of identity. Understanding and embracing that things are going to be different and you just have to choose your next trajectory. You have to choose who it is you want to be in retirement and how you want to spend your time. The second point being that time is a little bit more abundant or can be more abundant than what we even realize. So making sure that you have an intentional plan for how you're going to spend your time, who you're going to spend it with, and not just counting on one hobby or one particular venture to help you be fulfilled. Really understanding dynamically, again, going back to who you are, that can then help you fill your time. And finally, working with somebody that can help you make informed decisions when it comes to your financials. You've spent your life accumulating, and the bottom line is the distribution phase can be a little bit trickier. So you want to make sure that you are working with somebody who has helped hundreds, if not thousands of people retire every single day so that they can help you make informed decisions and avoid these pitfalls, avoid the challenges that so many retirees have faced so that you can truly create that full life, that abundant life that lets you be on your deathbed surrounded by your loved ones, feeling a sense of total peace, knowing that you lived this life to the fullest. So if you liked the message in this video and you think that there's other people that could benefit, please don't hesitate to like it, to share it. And below, we've actually got a link to our latest book that you can go ahead and get on the wait list ahead of June 14th, which is our big release day. And following that, you can be the first to know insights and materials that are tied to the book.